Recorded Books and RB Digital present Straight to the Noose, a Ralph Compton novel by Marcus Galloway, narrated by Pete Bradbury. Chapter 1. Mississippi, 1869. The Delta Jack was one of the most luxurious riverboats to float down the Mississippi. If one were to look at her plush carpets, sample the fine selection of liquors served in one of the many bars, or taste the food prepared by its well-paid chefs, one might guess the riverboat to be exclusive to rich men or prominent gamblers. That couldn't be further from the truth. Everyone was welcome aboard the Delta Jack. All a man needed to become a passenger was enough money to sit in at one of the gambling tables scattered throughout its 3 decks. Such a man didn't even need to be rich. He could stay aboard as long as he kept gambling. The Delta Jack made frequent stops, and as soon as a man's bankroll ran out, he was promptly escorted onto dry land. If he didn't want to separate himself from the Jack's many hospitalities, he could always apply for a line of credit from the boat's owner. Cam Greeley was always willing to consider such an application so the man in need of funds could remain on board for a while longer. It was generally a good arrangement, if only for one of the 2 parties involved. Games played on the Delta Jack ran the gamut from gin rummy and simple rolls of dice, all the way up to roulette and backgammon. But most men didn't board the Jack to play anything but poker. If all those other games were appetizers and dessert, poker was the steak and potatoes served in between. Some men dined for days on that steak. Others choked on it. Abner Mason was one of the better-known faces on the Delta Jack. When he left his small but elegant cabin on the middle deck, he was greeted by friendly smiles by everyone from the young men hired to sweep the halls to the young women hired to convince certain players to stay on board for just a bit longer. At the moment, Mason's rounded face reflected every hour of the last 20 he'd played 5-card stud before he'd gotten 3 hours of sleep. His light brown eyes were slightly bloodshot, and black stubble sprouted from his chin. Even so, he did his best to return the smiles he was shown with one of his own, which was always well received. "Good morning to you, Emma," he said to the young lady who walked toward him. She was a fresh-faced little filly with blonde curls and eyes that told a man she could teach him a thing or two. Having already taught some of her lessons to Mason during his many stays on the Jack, she smirked and nodded. "Afternoon is more like it," she said. Mason wore a rumpled blue suit that had obviously doubled as pajamas. Since one hand was being used to keep his jacket hooked over his shoulder, he used the other hand to fish a watch.
Sample complete. Ready to continue?